This is not a story for everyone. This is for the ones who felt themselves changing and didn't like what they were becoming. If you're healing in silence, if you're navigating the quiet battles no one else sees, this space is for you, because nobody ever talks about this part of the journey, the part where pain stops hurting and starts provoking. We all know what it's like to be hurt, but what happens when the pain transforms? What happens when something small triggers something huge? It could be anything. A look from someone across the room, a slight change in their tone of voice, or even just a silence that feels a little too loud. And just like that, you're not reacting to the present moment anymore. You're reacting to everything you've ever had to swallow, every injustice you've had to endure, every time you chose to stay quiet for the sake of peace. All of it comes rushing back in a single, overwhelming wave. After everything I had been through, I thought I knew what to expect. I expected tears. I expected late-night breakdowns. I was prepared for the sadness, for the waves of grief. What I didn't expect was numbness, complete and utter numbness. It was a strange void. There was no sadness. There was no anger, just a profound, hollow emptiness. And I learned very quickly that numbness is dangerous. It's so much more dangerous than pain, because when you stop feeling pain, you also stop feeling your limits. The guardrails that keep you safe, the internal compass that guides your actions, it all just disappears. When you're in that state, it doesn't take much to push you over the edge. For me, it was a careless word, a dismissive tone from someone who didn't understand the ground they were treading on, someone casually crossing a line they didn't even know existed. And in that instant, I felt my chest tighten. My heart started pounding, and my thoughts began to race. They weren't violent thoughts, not in the way you might think. They were reckless. They were thoughts that whispered, "Say it, do it, end this now. Who cares about the consequences?" That was the moment I realized this wasn't about them anymore. This wasn't about the person who said the wrong thing or did the wrong thing. This was about me. It was about the volatile state I was in, where any small spark could ignite a wildfire. That realization was terrifying. It forced me to start monitoring myself with a level of vigilance I'd never needed before. I started paying attention to my tone of voice, making sure it didn't carry the edge I was feeling inside. I tracked my breathing, trying to keep it slow and steady when all it wanted to do was become shallow and quick. My silence became a deliberate choice, not just a passive state. I couldn't trust my immediate reactions. I wasn't afraid of the external consequences anymore, what someone else might say or do. No, I was afraid of my own impulse. I was afraid that one single triggered moment would undo years of discipline, years of hard work, years of building myself back up. The pain was no longer an external force attacking me. It had moved from the outside to the inside. It had become a part of my internal landscape. That's when my prayers completely changed. I stopped asking God for relief from the pain. I stopped begging for the situation to go away. Instead, I started asking for restraint. My prayer became, "God, please, slow me down. Step in and interrupt my anger. Don't let this temporary pain, this fleeting moment of rage, write a permanent and devastating ending to my story." I knew with absolute certainty that if I reacted from that triggered, numb place, I would create a wreckage that I would regret for the rest of my life. And here's the core of it. Triggers are almost never about the present moment. They feel like they are, but they're not. They are about the accumulated wounds. Every single time you stayed quiet when you should have spoken up. Every time you chose to keep the peace at your own expense. Every single time you swallowed an injustice, a slight, a betrayal, because fighting back felt too exhausting. All those moments don't just disappear. They stack. They build on top of each other, one by one, creating this immense invisible weight inside you. And then one day, something incredibly light, a simple question, a misunderstood text lands on that stack, and the whole thing comes crashing down. Something light hits something incredibly heavy. That's the moment when self-awareness becomes your most critical tool. It's not about willpower. It's about awareness. I had to learn to pause, to create a space between the trigger and my reaction. And that pause wasn't a sign of weakness. It wasn't me hesitating or being indecisive. It was me actively protecting my future self from the impulses of my present self. That tiny moment of stillness is where the battle is won. In that space, silence became my strategy. It was no longer about being passive. It was a tactical decision to not add fuel to the fire. Distance became my medicine. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to physically remove yourself from the situation, to give yourself the space to breathe and let the emotional storm pass. And most importantly, restraint became my strength. I realized that true power isn't in unleashing your anger. It's in holding it, understanding it, and choosing a response that aligns with the person you want to be, not the pain you're currently feeling. It's the quiet, unseen victory of choosing long-term peace over short-term satisfaction. But here's the difficult truth they don't tell you about this journey. When you start choosing restraint, when you master the art of the pause, people notice, and not everyone respects it. Some people will see your calmness not as strength, but as a challenge. They will test it. They will push your boundaries, trying to find the breaking point you've worked so hard to manage. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about how navigating those tests, how dealing with people who provoke your restraint changed the way I see people forever. It's a crucial part of this journey. So make sure you subscribe, not just to watch another video, but to learn how to stay in control when your emotions rise and the world tries to pull you back into the storm. Thanks for being here.